Okay.
Okay, hi everyone. This is another oil pastels class. So make sure you have your colors, of course, 12 of them, and also your paper. Give you a few minutes, just look at this, maybe take photos. So today we're doing Persimmons. Chinese, probably like shizi, I don't know. Yeah. So please take your pictures and then we'll get into our sketch after. So also have your pencils ready. Yeah, so for this week, we're just going to be doing mostly like shapes and also color identifications. Okay, I will move this to the side and then we can begin. Okay, so first thing we need to do is actually sketch. So take your pencils, maybe a really light one, so 2H or any of the H is good, because if it's too dark, when you blend it, it will smudge and become really gray. All right, so I'm taking my pencil and we're just going to draw really simple circles everywhere. There's 3 of them. So I'll draw this one first and this one on the right side, and then the last one will be this one. So first, let's draw this one. With your pencil, just lightly sketch. Doesn't have to be perfectly round. I like to use straight lines because then I can always curve them out later. And leave a little bit of room for the shadow at the bottom. It's kind of like a flat circle. And then this one, leaving a little bit of space in between. It's about half, but if you don't have room like me, you can just move it closer. This one's a little bit.
Jane,
Yeah.
can you make your pencil line a little bit darker?
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me just do this right here. Is that good enough?
Yeah, I
Okay.
know it's not meant to be dark, but we just can't see it.
Yeah. Okay, I'll make them darker. Okay, and this one is a little bit taller. So above it, we can mark out the top of this here. The bottom is also a little bit higher. So we're going to make it a little bit higher, right about there. It's kind of just going back to the basics of sketching and using landmarking. And the shape doesn't have to be perfectly accurate as long as it's really organic with these fruits. So it can be whatever shape you want. And the last shape, which is this persimmon in the back here, two important parts in this image is that it lines up with the center, kind of the center of the other two. So right in the middle of this, you have this line, and then right in the middle of this, you have the top. So let's connect it. And for the bottom, just a line across the bottom is fine. Okay, and the next step is to sketch in the leaves. So at the top of each fruit, this one's more in the near the middle, and this one's near the top. We're just going to sketch out this middle one and also the shadow around the leaves. So don't worry about the details, just the outline and the middle. So let's start with the middle, this little stem here. I'm going to put it just a little bit above the middle. This one's more for reference. And then I'll make the leaves go around it. And this actually takes up a pretty big portion of the fruit. So lightly reference that. And just very roughly sketch in the curves and the corners of the leaf. Just the outline. And you're just going to do the same for the rest of them. This one's a little bit different, so I'll do that last. Let's do this one. It's a little bit to the left of the center. It's kind of like a flower. And the last one for this one, we're just going to give it a little hat. So at the very top, kind of give it a cap. And that should be all. If you're done with the sketch, we are going to slowly move into the colors. So while we're all finishing our sketch, I'll just tell you guys what the first colors we'll need are. We will need yellow and orange, just the first two colors. Okay, and whenever you're ready, let's start with the lightest color. So the lightest color will be yellow. And where we're going to put this is, if you see in the lightest areas or wherever the orange is a little bit brighter. We're going to avoid these, if you can see these white spots, the highlights. We're going to leave that white. So for example, if you're adding a little bit of yellow up here, you would add a circle and then try to not color the circle in. It's just a highlight. So taking my yellow, I'm going to start on the left side so my hand doesn't smudge. The yellow goes pretty much all over the persimmon. So in this area, just start filling it in. And if you see the highlights, the brightest areas, you're going to leave that empty. So I'm just filling it in. Just gonna clean the yellow because there were some other colors on there. The reason why we use the lightest colors first is because we can't cover darker colors, but the lighter ones, we can still make it darker. So now I'm just going to fill in this little area, just wherever the orange is the lightest. And I'm just leaving the bottom part, shading it in instead. So this part is pressing heavy, and then everywhere else just kind of lightly shade. especially around the edges. This way it helps create a blended effect. There's a little highlight right here. Right now we're just setting the base colors. Okay, now I'm going to start with this one. So this one's a little bit lighter than the rest of them. So we're going to cover most of the shape. This entire bottom area is pretty much a lighter orange. So take the yellow, I'm just going to leave a little bit of circles for the highlights. And then the last one is mostly on the top. So in the top area, we're just going to leave the bottom. That's for the highlight. And you can also add a little bit of yellow in this bottom area because it's reflecting this white on the table. So just in here, lightly shade some of that yellow in. Just gonna leave it like that. Okay, and the next color we're going to add is the orange. So this will kind of be, we're adding on top of the yellow, and also in these darker areas. So basically the entire fruit we're going to cover in orange, except for the highlights, of course. So for example, it's going to go right on top of the yellow and kind of following the shape. So I wouldn't go sideways just yet, but rather kind of going around the fruit. So going in this sort of direction when you're adding the color. And in the middle here, you can't really tell, but as we know, the persimmons have this crease, the line that goes down the middle. There's a little bit of a line just here because it's getting a little bit darker. So I would press a little bit harder here and just kind of blend it out to the side. Like that. And then keep going. So now we're on this side. I'm going to move in this direction. Going across the bottom as well. This part's a little bit darker, so just go all the way to the bottom of the fruit. So with the orange, especially in these dark areas, you can start filling in, getting rid of those tiny holes, just pressing really hard. And then I'm going to move on to the next persimmon, which is this one. Just getting rid of, filling in the whole fruit and leaving the highlights. Start on this side. There's a little bit of a dark area here. Remember to follow the direction or the curve of the fruit. It's a little bit darker on the bottom. There's a little bit of highlight, just this little bit. So we're going to leave the yellow. So I'm just leaving a little bit of yellow. Just fill in this entire area because it is one of the darker shades. And leave the highlight. Just going to sketch it out so it's a little bit more clear. So those white areas, I'm not going to fill in, just around. And the last one in the back, we're also going to do the same thing. So just starting from this side. And my highlight is right here. So I'll just draw a circle around it so I don't accidentally color it in. And highlights do make the whole picture because they tell us how round the object is or where the light is coming from, and also what kind of light it is. Here, there's also a darker highlight, which is a reflection of this fruit. So if you can see, there's this tiny little highlight here. We're just gonna lightly sketch around that as well. And to make this highlight less sharp, just blend out the edges very carefully, still keeping the yellow in there. You can actually also take yellow and blend it out. So right now I'm just taking yellow and blending this little highlight. Just going to make this a little bit round, more round, curving upwards. And actually, I'm going to make this fruit, this one on the left, a little bit darker in this area because I want this one to be a little bit brighter. So I'm taking the orange, just adding a little bit more. It's not going to be that much darker, but you can kind of tell the yellow is kind of disappearing. For these little sketchy parts, I'm going to blend it out with a yellow. So taking the yellow and just blend it out. So smooth. Okay, and the next color we need to use is red. So basically, wherever it is the darkest, I'm going to add a little bit of that and then blending it out with the orange. So using these two together, we're going to make the shadows a bit darker and more saturated. So the next color will be red. And just looking at this image, we're going to put it here and a little bit in the back and also some just on the edge and maybe a little bit here. So the first place, let's put some red in this corner. So I'm very lightly, because red can also be very dark. Can't even tell the difference, but we're going to add red in layers. So this is red, just sketching it. And then you can blend it out with the orange or not. If you want to keep the texture, then you don't have to blend it. But I'm just blending it out so it's more smooth. The next part I'm going to add it is in the back fruit. So on this fruit, the red is kind of under in this corner, so in here, and also just in this area. So with the red, start lightly adding some of it. Just in this corner. Very lightly. And also in this area right here. There's just a little bit on this top here. So right on the edge, or actually not right on the edge, just right there, add a little bit of red. Okay, and I would blend this out with orange. And the last place we'll add some red is just on the bottom of the shadow. It's kind of like you're adding a little bit of blush to the bottom of the shadow and also some here. So I'm just going to do this side, lightly add some red following the curve of the fruit. There's also this little crease. You can add some down here as well. And then blend it out. Just can take the orange and just smooth out the lines. Okay, and the next step, you will need white. Make sure it's clean. And what we're going to do with the white is lock in the whites. So essentially we're going to take the white and just fill in the white. You won't see anything, but it's basically securing that it won't become a different color. It's kind of like blocking or masking it. So I'm going to take the white and just go over the highlights, being very careful not to touch the other colors. But if it happens, it's okay. So I'm just filling it in. Same here. There's also some on this edge here, so I'm just going to press really hard. Clean. And then this highlight right here. Okay, and the next little thing we're going to add is some brown at the bottom of the fruit. And we haven't used brown in a while, so your stick might be dry. I'm just going to clean it off, make sure the color is soft. And that's another thing to remember. Pastels can dry up, so I just make sure that's nice and cleaned after a period of time. So we need brown for the bottom of the fruit, or the bottom shadows. I'm gonna take the brown and just go on the edge here, just add a little bit. Add a little bit, blend a little bit, and just switch between these two. So I'm going to take the orange and blend it out, just like we did with the red. Can add a little bit more on this side. And blend. Do the same here along the bottom. This is also to prepare for the shadows on the table, which we will do last. So I'm just going on the very bottom edge. Add a little bit and blend a little bit. Do the same to the fruit in the back. All right, so these were the 5 colors we used for the orange parts of the fruit. Now we can move on to the leaves. So the leaves will be obviously green and a little bit of dark green as well, and brown. So I'm going to put the other colors away. Actually, we might also need a little bit of yellow. So the green colors, we need those. So let's get started with the leaves. You can just fill in this entire area because green will be the lightest color anyways, except for this one. This one has a little bit more of a white edge, and I'll show you how to do that later. But let's do this one first. I'm just going to fill it all in, so this will be an easy step. So with the light green, start filling in the leaf area. No specific way of doing it, just color it in. Always start with the lightest colors. So make sure it's all filled in, especially around the edges. So it's nice and green. Oops. Okay, the next step is to add a little bit of dark green. So in these shadow areas, mostly in the center where it's caving in here, just along the edge, add some of this green. It's kind of in the middle. Imagine an inner circle like that. You can also fill in the middle as I'm doing right now. So far we've only used light green and dark green. Looking at this, it's kind of boring. It's too bright. So we're going to take some yellow and just add some different colors, especially along the outside of the leaves. So like right here, add some yellow to the green. Yeah, it's okay if your yellow is a little bit dirty or it has orange colors from earlier. That's actually good. All right, the next color we'll be using is brown. And brown just goes anywhere you can see the shadows or when it's really dark. I'm going to start with this middle dot, the very center, the persimmon. and then go around it and add like a ring of brown. So I'll show you what it looks like. I'm not filling it all in, but I'm going around the dot that I placed in the middle. Kind of like I'm drawing a brown sun. And just on the edges of these leaves, I'm going to create the effect where it's kind of folding in. So there's this shadow. Just kind of in the middle of the leaf right here. There's also a little bit of brown in this corner. You can also add a little bit of brown on the bottom leaf. Leaving a little bit of this green in the middle. One thing you can also do is just very slightly add some of this brown everywhere around the leaf. Just slightly, because this green is not very green like this one. I'm gonna try and mute the colors. So I'm just slowly browning the leaves. And here's an interesting color experiment we can do. So I still think the leaf here is a little bit too green. And what color can we add to make it less green? So if we have, let's say, some green, I'm just testing. To get kind of this more yellowish color, we don't add yellow, we add actually some pink, because pink is kind of the opposite of green because it has some red in it. And we're just gonna, for this part, take some pink and just go over top of the greens. So in this area, we'll get more of a slight green. Does that make sense? So we're going to take pink and green, actually just pink, and add it to the leaves to get this kind of color. So I'm going to take my pink, and you can just totally blend it in. Especially near the center. You can also use peach, but I think pink works just as well. We can try using the peach as well. So we just use the pink, but to lighten it up, you can use some of this color. Just add it to the edges of the leaves. So that's a lot of color mixing, color blending. That's how we get unique colors with oil pastels, because we only have 12 colors. And now I'm just going back with the brown to make the shadows a little bit darker. Not too much, just in the very important creases. That's it for the first leaf. Now we have to do that two more times for the other ones. So once again, this one we fill with green, but the edges of this are a little bit white. It's okay if you color all of it in, but I'm going to leave it out. So what I mean by that is I'm just going to leave a little bit of a corner. And because we've done this before, we can now just color this one in as well, because we know what colors we need to use. Just a little bit of a cap at the very top, just like that. Next is the dark green, and just add it wherever the brown is. It's kind of acting as a base. And also add some of the dark green over here. The next color will be brown. So this is, once again, wherever the shadows are. For this one, it's mostly in this area. Oh, don't forget the dot in the middle. And then go around it, leaving a little bit of green in the middle. Kind of create a ring around it. And the same here. Just taking the brown, and wherever you see there's a dark spot, just add a little bit of brown. Once again, this part does not have to be accurate, especially for this leaf. And this part, if you want, you can add some of the yellow just to yellow the green a little bit more. because if it's too green, it looks too fresh. And most persimmons are not fresh when we see them. And I like this brownish green. So add a little bit more of this yellow. Just wherever you want, maybe near the edges. It makes a little bit of a difference, but I can't even tell. But after that step, we're going to move into the pink and the peach. Once again, we're just creating this kind of more yellowish green. Because the green that we have in the Crayola set is it's too lime. So take the pink and just blend out, go over top of the green a little bit. To bring some of the highlights back, you can take the peach and press really hard wherever there's these highlights. So for this one, it's just on the edge. So we just use pink and peach to make the green less green. And the last step for the leaves will be just to make the darker areas a little bit more dark. So take the brown again and bring back the shadows. And last step, which you should not forget, is the shadows on the table under the fruit. So right now our fruit look like they're floating. We'll take a little bit of black and brown for the first step. So I'm going to put these other colors away. So now we're going to move on to the last step, which is the shadows. First thing I will use is black. So take the black and not to shade, but to add a line. Because once again, black is very dark. Just gonna add a line at the very bottom. Just a line. Especially where it is the darkest, I call these the tension points because those are the darkest areas on this image. Also near the bottom here, just in this right bottom corner. Just a line because we will blend it out using the brown. And then, just a line. Wherever the fruit is touching the table is basically where we add the black. So I've added the black lines where the fruit is touching the table. Kind of imagine. And if you're done that, after the black lines, you're going to take the brown and just blend it out. Though I would first, if you're not comfortable with just adding the color on directly, you can sketch out the shadow with a pencil. Or in this option, we could just take a peach, whatever light color works for you, and just kind of sketch out the shadow. Can't see it very well, but I'll make it a little bit darker. So I'm just showing the edge of where the shadow will end. But anyways, that part is optional. Now we're going to really start coloring the shadow. And I'm going to take this brown color and blend out the black line. So going from the black out. So take a little bit of that. I'm going to go one area at a time. Take the black out with the brown. It's okay if our shadow is a little bit darker than the reference. And it will be darker on this side because the light is coming in this way. So the shadow will be more to the right. And that's it for this side. Now I'm going to do the middle fruit. So take the black line, starting from the black line, take the brown and blend it out. Same with this one. Kind of go to the right side. And you can either blend it out using a peach or white. I'm going to take the peach first and just kind of smudge the edges. Just to go over the steps again, you need the black line, then blend it with the brown, kind of bring it out, and then blend it out using a peach or white. So what a peach blending will look like is just kind of bring the color down. And also peach has some of these orange tones in it already. So when we use it, it mimics the effect of the orange reflecting onto the table. Just blending out the brown. Kind of going over the edge. Same with this one. And lastly, take the white and just make sure, just kind of bring the color to a stop, especially around the right side. Essentially what we're doing is just to make sure that the table and the transition between the table and the shadow is not too harsh. And give a little bit of color to the table as well. So I'm just taking the white, it's going kind of everywhere. And that is the end. So we are done. How did everyone